Stitch Cuties, I'm Brittany.
And I'm Julie.
And together we're the mother-daughter duo of Stitches of Love. Welcome to the next video in the Bloomin Basics Sew Along video series. This video specifically, we're going to tell you our 10 favorite sewing machine applique notions that are mom approved and tested by me, which means anyone can be successful with them. So let's get started. Now, we're going to specifically talk about a thread kit for the Bloomin Basics Sew Along, but the information of this thread kit applies to any sewing machine applique project. And that is mom's favorite tip, to use a 30 weight thread in your needle and a matching bobbin of 50 weight thread in your bobbin. Do you want to tell us about how that gets you the best stitch?
Yes, and this, by the way, we always use silky threads because
I love them.
And they have such great colors. I mean, look at these colors, you guys. But yes, the way this works the reason this works for you is when you choose your buttonhole stitch, you want your machine to go forward and then bite in, and then forward and bite in. You don't want it to go backwards, because if it goes backwards, say, and you're trying to do like a little curve or any kind of little bit of shape, sometimes you end up with that crazy stitch that goes whoop out to the side.
We don't want that.
Where you don't want it. And so in order to get around that, on the machines, the ones that have the stitch that will only move forward, like I just described,
which we'll cover in a video, don't worry.
Yeah, in other words, it doesn't go back and forth, so therefore you don't get a buildup of the thread. So to make that heavier look, that's why I use the 30 weight, because it is a thicker thread than the 50 weight.
So the 30 weight is the thicker weight. The 50 weight is that bobbin thread that's a little bit thinner.
In thread, the smaller the number, the thicker the thread. In needles, the smaller the number, the bigger the needle. It's backwards.
We'll cover that too, don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. But at any rate, a 30 weight in the needle plus 50 weight in the bobbin, I never have to worry about my tension. I get that question a lot on any of my machines, and I use multiple machines. You'll see further on in the video series, I'll show you the machine I'm using for this particular sew along, and you'll find out that it works great.
It does.
So probably your machine will too.
And along the same lines of while you're stitching, let's talk about stabilizer. This is actually a question we get a lot. And silly us, it's only within the past few years that we started using the sulky stabilizer. And I don't know why we did that. But in any case, this is the Sulky Tear Easy Stabilizer. It's available at stitchesoflovequilting.com. And what I love is that it's strong. It does stabilize, but it tears like a dream. And you can use it for both sewing machine applique and embroidery machine applique. So throughout this video series for sewing machine applique, you're going to see mom use this Sulky Tear Easy Stabilizer throughout the process.
It's so nice to have a stabilizer underneath when you're making your stitches, because it gives it a better surface to keep everything nice and smooth. You know, if you're just doing like cotton on cotton, your background fabric may be a little...
It almost gets like pulled into the machine.
Yeah, it's not as
stable.
Thick. So a stabilizer makes it stable.
They did a good job naming it.
It's wonderful.
Stabilizing.
But the reason for this particular one that I like, and I've been hunting for a long time, even went so far as to use, what do you call that?
Deli paper.
Deli papers for sandwiches, that kind of a wax paper. I was using that prior to using this because it was lightweight enough, and when I tore it away, it didn't distort my stitches, which this does not either. And after you go to the effort of making your stitches and doing your machine applique, you don't want to mess it up just by removing the stabilizer that you don't want to leave in, because it is, if you can hear this, it's a little crinkly.
I think we've all accidentally had a quilt that crinkles. We've all done that.
Have I done that?
I've done it to some bags. Another thing that's great is what I have basically dubbed the perfect stack. So for me, I keep this exact stack in front of my sewing machine at all times. I never change it, it never goes away, and that ensures that I have everything I need no matter what sewing machine applique project I'm working on. So first up, I'm going to start at the bottom of the stack actually.
Will
you help me, Mom?
I sure will.
Okay, so at the very bottom of the stack, sorry, I know that's heavy, is the Caterpillar Glow. It's a premium glow cordless light pad. So take a look at how thin it is. It's cordless. It has 3 levels of light. I'll be honest, I always use the brightest because my eyes are getting old.
I do sometimes use a little bit less.
Do you?
Just depends on if I'm sitting in a bright window.
Oh, that's true.
Sometimes.
It is fantastic. It does come with a charger, of course. You can keep it plugged in. You keep yours plugged in all the time. I never have mine plugged in unless I need to recharge it. I love this, and what I love even more is that it comes in the same box with a cutting mat that fits perfectly on top, and once it's sitting there, it doesn't slide around. So the cutting surface is 12 by 16. So when you're done with your applique block, most blocks you can trim right here on this cutting mat. And I love that because I also like to use the trim lines that come in the pattern from Stitches of Love. And I like to give myself a guide with that before I cut to make sure I'm accurate. Now, the next thing on my stack, well, I'll take this from you. And really, Mom, you should talk about this because this was your amazing find that you wanted to manufacture. And then you found someone had done it and you were just over the moon. So tell us about the applique glass mat.
And this is the Caterpillar glass mat is what they call it, the Caterpillar glass mat, and it fits perfectly on top of this any of their light pads except, is this the largest one?
This is not the largest one, but this fits the premium glow.
It fits on this one that we sell. And this is glass, and what's so wonderful about this is when you're doing your applique and you have your pieces underneath and you want to quote build a unit or get ready to iron them onto your project, the background that you have, you can lay this right on top. You wouldn't put
I'll move the cutting mat.
You wouldn't have your cutting mat on there, but you lay this right on top of your design. Put your design on your light pad, put this on top of that design, and then you can actually, as Brittany says right here, you can iron on it. Is that not genius?
It's
amazing.
Instead
of trying to balance, as we used to try to balance little pieces from wherever we had to work, a work surface that was large enough to work on, and then you would balance your little pieces over to your ironing board, or if your ironing board was large enough, then you still had to, things moved. So it's much, much nicer to be able to do this. It
truly is so nice. And what works so well with that while you're building your applique units is a fusing mat. So this is the 12-inch by 18-inch precision fusing mat. And so how we would use this, and you'll see this throughout the video series, is that you'll have your light pad, your glass mat, then you're gonna have your placement guide, and then your fusing mat is gonna go right here, and you're gonna build your units right here, ironing over your light pad, over your applique glass, and you never have to wiggle and move away to another surface.
And what's so nice about this particular fusing mat is I don't know if you can see the little grid on it, but those are kind of like little tiny pockets. So when you press it, your glue typically, you know how you get your iron so gunky and messed up sometimes when you're using any kind of fusible really. But part of the reason for that is the glue will actually melt and melts out beyond the edge of your little project piece, and so therefore it gets on your iron, and when it gets on your iron it just has no choice but to kind of melt and burn and make a mess. So using this, it doesn't do that, and then you can just peel them right up. I wish you could feel this.
I know, it's so great.
It just feels like
it's kind of like tacky, like
a little bit tacky, kind of feels like rubber. You can wipe
it's like
these.
Non-slip.
Yeah.
So that's another nice thing, when you put your piece on here, so this actually comes as a set with the Teflon pressing mat. I like to build my unit on this because if you build your unit on those Teflon mats, which are great, it can be slippery. What I like to do with the Teflon mat that comes with this is once I have my unit built and I'm putting it on my background fabric, I put that Teflon mat over the entire piece and do one big, like, really good press. And then once you have your unit built and it's like lightly pressed onto your background fabric, you then can do your real solid final pressing before you sew.
And that is when it adhered nicely.
You get your Steady Betty out. And so it is 12 by 16 as well. This is...
It's like the magic number, isn't it?
It is. So this is why, to me, it's a perfect stack, because everything is 12 by 18 or 12 by 16, and it layers beautifully in your workspace. This is especially nice if you don't have a large workspace in your home. For sewing, you can have it all on one little table right in front of your sewing machine. So this is double-sided of a Steady Betty. And it's great. I love using this. And I always keep this at the top of my pile. And so whatever process I'm working on in the sewing machine applique process, you just put whatever it is you're working with at the top, and you've got everything you need. And we did kind of mention this, but this, I guess, we want to make sure we do name what this is. This is the Steam Fast Travel Iron. Look at this little cutie. It works great, especially to me. I don't like using a full-size iron when I'm working with applique pieces, because typically you're working with much smaller pieces than you would if you're pressing, when you get to making your borders, you'll want to use a real iron. But when you're doing your applique, having this nice little iron, I think gives you more control and saves your fingertips.
And it's so helpful to be able to hold it like this. I don't know, it's a nice grip.
It's hand-sized.
Yeah, they just thought of everything with these little irons.
I love them. And then we don't want to forget a few little smaller notions that I think are kind of handy. Well, first off, these scissors are amazing.
My favorite scissors.
And they're perfectly named. They're called the Perfect Scissors. And they are. So they come in 3 sizes. You have the small size. This is Mom's. She has, I don't know what this little tip is. It's funny.
It's just a little protector tip.
They do come with little protector tips, but we seem to always lose them.
Yeah, they come with a nice little sleeve, but yes, I do lose
We
them.
don't know where they go in our office.
These are made by Karen K. Buckley. She's a great appliquer. But what's so wonderful about these scissors is, I don't know if you can tell, but see how these handles are flexible?
So soft.
So if you're using them a lot, like if you're cutting, well, I used to use them a lot when I would cut wool pieces. It doesn't hurt your hands. After a while you get marks on your fingers wherever you put them in your scissors. And all of them
they're all great.
Are squishy.
It's hard for me to pick a favorite, but if you had to pick only getting one size, I would go with a medium, because it's still small enough to trim threads at your sewing machine, still large enough to cut out applique pieces if you're really tracing and cutting. But where I mostly use them is when you get your kit, you just snip your little pieces free, like a little 1/8" snip. And what I love is that they're sharp all the way to the tip.
That's what I was
going to say. Is that what you were going to say?
Yep.
So it gives you perfect control without having to overcut.
Also, all of them, no matter which size, they're serrated. The blade is serrated. So when you're cutting out, if you're not using our laser kit and you're having to cut pieces, it kind of holds it. It gives you more control to cut.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Why aren't all scissors serrated?
Wool. Well, I don't know. I mean, I have lots of scissors that aren't serrated. I like them too.
I like these the best.
These are my favorite.
Mine too. These are the only ones I'll use.
Now, another thing that you'll find helpful when you're sewing at all, or even doing some of your
when you're
marking your accent lines on appliques, I like to use a micron Pigma pen, and that's permanent ink, and you just draw with it very lightly. Now, what I brought with me here is a 0.5, which is a thicker line. I suggest you get like a 0.3 or a 0.2 is probably my favorite size.
The finest point possible.
Yeah.
And a brown or a black. You typically do brown, I think.
I like to use brown for accent lines, but this one happens to be black. I also draw with these as well, and that's why this is a thicker one, because I had been drawing with it. But they're great. Now,
another thing that I like to have on hand, which we don't have here in the video, I apologize for that. Another option is your Sewline chalk pencil, which I will say has quickly become one of my favorites. And I think right now I just happen to be working with like a lot of dark fabrics. And so I need to, the chalk is a light pink, almost white color, so I can see that on a lighter color. So I would really recommend having both, depending on the use of it.
The chalk, don't worry about it. It's not messy at all. It's a very fine line, and it will disappear rather quickly.
It just kind of rubs right off.
And then the last thing we have here,
so cool,
is called the 4-in-1 Essential Sewing Tool, and this is designed by Alex Anderson. It's wonderful. Just like this, in its form this way, you have a nice point here that you can use as a little point poker outer, or
like if you're working with a small applique piece, even with a small iron, it's nice to have something kind of hold it in place.
yes. We also have a little flat iron here on the end that you can press like little seams open if you're doing something like that.
Which we do press some seams open, I believe,
Your
on this.
handy Jack the Ripper.
Which we write every pattern in a way that we hope you avoid that.
Yes, we try to help you out so you don't have to worry about Jack the Ripper.
But we all get to talking or watching
and
Netflix
then
while
this
we're
end
sewing.
has a nice stiletto, so if you're one who likes to use a stiletto when you're feeding your pieces in through your sewing machine, like if you're chain piecing, it's very handy there.
Mm-hmm.
It's also handy when you're doing your moving your applique pieces on your placement guide. If you need to like give it a little nudge, this will work nicely. Also, a pair of tweezers is good to have too, but
yes,
I think I didn't bring them with
you
us for this.
did. And I know where they are in the cabinet, but they're not on the table.
Oh, sorry. Well, we
but
did.
bonus tip, tweezers are helpful.
Tweezers are very helpful.
Is there another little bonus we forgot about?
Well, don't forget your bifocals if you need those.
There you go.
I do have bifocals on the sewing machine
Or
today.
just don't forget your glasses in general.
I have certain things, and everybody kind of does. I always say, excuse me, when you're get your sewing machine set up, when you're ready to stitch, you kind of need to build your little nest around you.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that are important for me. I'll show you what I use when we get to that
Like
part.
your pin cushions and things like that.
Yeah, certain little things I like in certain little places, and it just makes it a little more fun. It's fun to have cute stuff, and this is a cutie too. Just have something cute to hold your little tools in. Especially
in a fun little trash jar, like you always have a cute little jar.
Little trash
so
bowl.
when you peel the white backing off your prefused laser cut piece, you have a nice little cute jar right there on your table.
It's a bowl.
It's a bowl.
Not a
Sorry, it's
jar.
a bowl.
It's a bowl.
So a trash bowl.
Yeah.
There you go. So those are some extra bonuses at the end for you.
Yeah. Which makes me think of Rachel Ray, because
she always has the
she always
food bowl.
has the garbage bowl, I think she calls it.
Which I use. You got me one of those years ago, and I still use it.
See? Yeah.
I know. It's red and it's big, and I just
Just
love
helps
it.
you be tidy.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
So these are 10 plus a few bonuses that are notions that you don't have to have, but if you do, it'll make your life easier, and it will guarantee you even more accurate sewing machine applique results.
Because we want you to have fun.
Yes. So stay tuned for the next video in the series, and thank you for sharing this with your friends. Happy stitching!
Bye-bye.